Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. People go on a lot of places to have a business. And a lot of small business people leave their home state. David Isserman, he left the country. We're going to learn about that more when David joins us right now. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Well, first, tell us a little bit about yourself personally. Tell us what you're doing now. And finally, a website where people can learn more.
Sure. So just quick background about me. I was raised in the Midwest, lived for many years in Boulder, Colorado, followed by Atlanta, and I'm currently living in Lisbon, Portugal. Um, the My background has started off in biotech, and then later moved into consumer health and wellness. So my primary focus has always been on putting products into the hands of consumers that make them healthier.
Mhm.
So in my current role, I run a company called Isserman Ventures, um, and that is more of a consultancy. But I also am the COO of a direct-to-consumer brand called Touchstone Essentials. And if you're that company has essentially been around for 12 years. We've grown it from zero to over 500,000 customers globally. We have warehouses here in Europe, in the U.S., in Asia, and so we ship to customers in about 50 different countries. Um, so if you're really interested in kind of connecting with me or learning more about me, you can go to my website, which is my last name, Isserman, ISSERMAN.com. Or you can, if you're interested in learning about Touchstone Essentials, you can go to thegoodinside.com.
Okay, that's a starting point.
Okay.
Let's back up a little bit and let's talk about your health company for a moment. What kind of products do you offer, and why did you start the business?
Yes, so Touchstone really offers sort of a wide range of products. They're all vegan, plant-based, and mineral-based nutritional products. So things like greens, juice powders, plant-based protein powders. We offer a whole line of heavy metal detox products that uses a mineral called zeolite, and so it's sort of a mix between sort of your everyday multi, all the way to sort of specializing in our detox vertical. And so the what really happened was I came out of consulting, and I was always in sort of marketing and operations consulting with various consumer brands. Like I said, I started in biotech, putting over-the-counter drugs onto traditional retail pharmacy shelves. And so from that, I actually got a call from the CEO of Touchstone before it even had a name, who asked if I would help him start Touchstone, and that's been over 12 years now. So yeah, so it's been a good run. We've really been focused on continuing to expand globally, and putting the right products into people's hands, and it's really been a great company to build.
Let me ask you this question. How'd you end up in Lisbon?
It's a great question. I blame my wife. She always wanted to live in Europe, and we had the opportunity to move to Lisbon. They have they have a great visa for Americans who want to live here. It's a really welcoming country. The Portuguese are extremely friendly and welcoming to foreigners. It's got a very easy access to get back and forth to the US. It's centrally located between sort of where my employees are, which are on the east coast of the US, all the way to the eastern side of Europe. And it's also the innovation hub of Europe. It was just named the capital of European innovation, and it's where a lot of venture capitalists have moved, where a lot of entrepreneurs have moved, a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs, a lot of digital nomads. So it's really kind of the heart of every sort of aspect of my professional life and my personal life. So
Hmm.
it's been a great place. I moved here about 2 years ago. We rented for a year and then immediately started looking for an apartment to purchase, and purchased an apartment and renovated it, and now we're here.
Hmm. But David, you said your people are your employees are on the East Coast. How do you manage them from so far?
So about 10 years ago, Touchstone went remote first. And so we had an office originally. And one of the things that we learned by having an office as an e-commerce company is that employees don't necessarily want to be in a traditional office environment. At the time, it was a lot of overhead for us. And so the decision was made to disband the office and have everybody work remotely. Fast forward to COVID, that actually we were in a very good position when COVID hit because all of our staff was already remote. So we didn't have to relearn any sort of processes or ways to manage that. So now, being in Lisbon, because we have warehouses in Europe and in the U.S. and staff here and staff in the U.S., it actually works out quite well for me from a time zone perspective. I work with our European teams in the morning, my time, which is before anybody on the East Coast wakes up. And then as people are waking up on the East Coast of the US, I start working more with those teams throughout the rest of the day. And so typically when I'm in the US, my day is actually quite a bit longer than it is here. Because here it's much more, it turns out that it's much more consolidated into a normal workday. So overall, it works out really well. We because we're already remote, everybody is remote.
Hmm.
It just seems to flow really nicely.
Okay, but let's go back to your company. Your company, if I heard it, provides products around the world, health products. Um, that's
Yeah,
it. Okay.
yeah.
So, and you say you have factories in Europe uh, and in the United States, but how do you coordinate the two? I mean, they seem like so different environments.
You mean when you mean coordinate, do you
Oh,
mean actually holding the inventory in the various locations and
yes.
organizing movements? So we have actually a substantial team that internally that is our logistics and operations team. And so everything that we sell, we manufacture in the United States. So our primary manufacturing facilities are in the US. We have our primary warehouses in the US. And so everything goes into our US warehouse. And then as needed, we transfer that inventory into our European warehouses so that they can get into the hands of the consumer faster. Instead of shipping it from the US directly to Europe or to Asia, we actually disperse the inventory and manage the inventory levels at those various facilities so that we have a much faster shipping and transit time to the
But
customer.
don't you have to pay a tariff shipping it from the United States to Europe?
We do. So we do have to pay import duties to bring it into Europe. which we do, and then various sort of taxes that are like sales taxes in the U.S. for VAT here or elsewhere is actually passed on to the consumer, because that's fairly typical. But we do know that doing business here, we have to import the products into Europe and into the UK.
I'm
So
gonna ask,
both the
I'm gonna ask a stupid question. Wouldn't it be easier just to have one location and have it send out stuff?
You would think it would be easier. The problem comes in that the transit times become so long. So in a perfect world, you would say, let's just keep a warehouse in the US and ship everything from our US warehouse. Where the issue comes in is that in order to get product from the US into the hands, say, of someone like, say I'm a customer in Lisbon, it just takes forever if you don't ship it via an air freight like a DHL. So, and if you want to ship it DHL, the cost just becomes so exorbitant that it doesn't, the consumer doesn't want to pay for the shipping cost. The company doesn't, it doesn't make sense for the company to pay that much for the shipping cost. And instead it's a much, the economics work out where it's much better to actually have the product at the warehouse in Europe already available, because we can bring it over on pallets, and then disperse it as needed from there, so we can distribute it to, in smaller orders to the customer.
Also, you're inside the European Union by then. So
Exactly. So we're inside the EU, which means that it doesn't have to go through customs for each order that's shipped from the US. It's already gone through customs on the bulk shipment that we've brought into our warehouse here. So it really does. It takes transit times from, say, 2 to 3 weeks down to 2 to 3 days.
hmm.
So much, much more reasonable. And we want our product to be delivered and in the hands of the customers as quickly as possible, because they want to use the product. They don't want to wait for the product to be delivered. And we want them to use the product because it makes their life better. So that's the reason why we have additional warehouses and distribution centers. So in a perfect world, I would say yes, we'd keep it in one location, much easier to manage inventory. We don't have to have our teams reviewing and forecasting and understanding the fluctuations, the seasonal or other fluctuations in the market demand. But it's not as good for the customer. And so that's why we go the extra steps to make sure that we have product where it's needed in order to get it into the customer's hands as quickly as possible.
And your website for your company?
Thegoodinside.com. So
Okay.
if you just type in thegoodinside.com, you will see Touchstone. You'll see our website. You'll see all of our products, and you could definitely do a deeper dive into the product selection from there.
How'd you come up with that title? The good.
Actually, that was our CEO, I believe, that came up with that. It's really, part of our philosophy at Touchstone is that we're doing good for everybody that wants to use our product. So it was sort of I believe, a natural progression. We originally used our brand name, Touchstone Essentials, as the domain name for our website, but quickly realized that Touchstone Essentials that has a double E in the middle of it, and it was very long to spell. And so we started thinking about other options for what really spoke to our consumers, what really shared our philosophy. And our philosophy is all about doing good. So the good inside was sort of this natural domain that made a lot of sense, and our CEO Eddie came up with that, and it worked out really great.
Well, let me ask you this question. Now let's get to the personal side. Are you a Portuguese citizen yet, or are you still an American citizen, or dual?
So I'm an American citizen. I have a Portuguese residency, and so I actually have a we have a summer house in the U.S. In the mountains of North Carolina, and the so we're back and forth quite a bit. But it takes 5 years as a resident in Portugal to be able to apply for Portuguese citizenship. So we're on year two, and I believe that after 5 years we're going to apply.
Well, the natural question is your wife happy to be in Europe?
She is loving Europe. It has been really a great move for both of us. So the she my wife always wanted to live in Europe, and so this move was really just a dream come true.
Yeah, but it's a big move, especially for younger people.
It's a big move. It is a big move. I would say that the anyone who's moving to another country, no matter where it is going to experience a sort of a major shift in their in cultures, in their thinking and their way of life, just trying to navigate normal living situations. It's different. Um, some things are better, some things are more difficult. Overall, living in Portugal has been a positive experience. The the things that we find more difficult are mainly having to deal with purchasing sort of consumer goods, for instance, because in Portugal, most businesses are small family owned businesses. It's always been that way and continues to be that way. So you don't have necessarily these giant stores that are selling millions of products that you can just go and get anything you want anytime you want. So for us, that was when we're outfitting an apartment when we first moved here. That's a very difficult thing to try to navigate. And so now we understand the process, we understand how things work, and so it becomes a lot easier. It just takes time to really experience that learning curve and to move forward from there. I would say the other thing that was really kind of a shock, particularly for me, was the quality of the food in Europe. I've been to Europe many times, but just living in Lisbon, the food scene here is incredible. And I've lived all over the US, New York, Boulder, Atlanta. It's the quality of the food in Europe is so superior to what we can really get in the US that it's really it's really amazing. So in for instance, yesterday my wife was out at this little market that is a two-room store, but they sell the most amazing produce down the street. And she brought home white strawberries and yellow kiwis, and they're grown here in Portugal, and they are so flavorful that you're just addicted to them. So it's a pretty amazing thing being here where the fresh produce is has so much flavor. It's just great.
But what about operating an e-commerce business in Portugal?
Yeah,
I mean, what about the internet connection, that sort of thing?
the infrastructure here is amazing. I I was so surprised when we moved here because I wasn't sure what to expect. The every so Lisbon had an earthquake in 1755, and the city was essentially destroyed. It had an earthquake followed by a tsunami, followed by a fire. And so a lot of the buildings here are from 1755 and to today. So so you have some really old buildings, you have some really modern buildings, And you just don't, for me moving here, I didn't know what the infrastructure was going to be like. Every single building in Lisbon is connected to gigabit fiber internet. They have invested so much money in making sure that the infrastructure is here for e-commerce entrepreneurs in general, e-commerce entrepreneurs, digital nomads. The mayor of Lisbon is a Harvard Business School graduate. And I went to a luncheon with him not that long ago, where he said that they need to continue investing in innovation, because if they can bring in innovators, the money will follow, and it'll rise. Rising tides raise all ships. That's really truly their belief. They think that if they are able to bring in all of these innovators from all over the world, from the US, from the rest of Europe, it's going to make Lisbon and Portugal into one of the greatest countries in the EU. And to me, I really see that in the infrastructure, the highway system, incredibly well maintained. The cell phone networks, incredible. Everything is just, the hospital systems, all brand new, modern equipment. It's all the most advanced technologies that if you go into a doctor's visit, it's all the equipment is the most advanced. So when you ask me about operating a business from here, it is so simple to operate a business from here.
A question: if you got sick, who would pay for your bill if you got sick?
Yeah, so there's two systems here. You have a public healthcare system where the government essentially covers the cost of your healthcare, or the vast majority of it. So if you had an emergency, you would go to a public hospital. If it was like if you were having a heart attack, for instance, you would go to a public hospital. If you, but on top of that, we carry private insurance through. There are several different providers, but the main insurance companies that you're familiar with as well would not health insurance companies, but like Allianz, they provide insurance, for instance. When I go and see a physician for, say, an annual visit, I go to a private hospital, and it's a large complex, and they have them throughout the country. And I see the physician, and so if there's a problem, I can go back and see that physician. So if I have a normal issue that they're trying to manage or cure or treat, I would go to the private hospital for that, and insurance would cover it. So it's all fully covered.
Okay, we just have a couple of minutes left, so let's first your website again for people that
The
want.
website is thegoodinside.com.
And what would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, I would like them to, first of all, I would like, if anyone is interested in learning more about the entrepreneurial and startup community in Portugal, that they should really feel free to reach out to me. They can find me on LinkedIn, and so I'm quite active in that, and it's a really exciting time to be here. The second thing is that I really want your audience to know that the being remote and being able to work from anywhere is really something that we can do with all of the technology that exists today. And so our company has really grown from a startup, from zero, to a company that now services hundreds of thousands of people, and that is all done with staff that works remotely. And it's quite incredible that you can now do that effectively and efficiently. And so I think that if there's a concern about that, that's really, there are tools out there that can help manage every aspect of that. So those are really the things I'd like to leave your audience with.
Well, on that note, David Isserman, we say thank you for a very, very interesting and different half hour. Thank you.
Thank you.